Have you been abused, neglected, experienced ACEs, survived trauma, or lived with dysfunctional household? Before beginning today's lesson, I want to give you a quick rundown of my trauma history so you have a better understanding of the journey I have been on from trauma to healing and hope. During the first 22 years of my life, I experienced tremendous trauma, but now live a life filled with tranquility and joy. I will fill these lessons with the stories of that journey. When I was 4 years old, an intoxicated parent attempted to drown myself and my 1-year-old sister. When I was 5, I was sexually molested for the first time by a 16-year-old neighbor. When I was 9, I was sexually molested by a 19-year-old neighbor when my mom sent me for a can of soup. When I was 10, I was repeatedly molested by my choir director. When I was 14, I was sexually accosted by a religious education director in the rectory where I worked in the evenings for the priests. When I was 16, I lost my virginity to date rape. When I was 16, later that year, I was attacked by a gang of youth downtown in Cincinnati. An officer in charge of that investigation asked my parents to take me to dinner when I was 17, after the trials were over, to celebrate the convictions. My parents allowed him to do so. However, he did not take me to dinner. He took me back to his apartment where he attempted to rape. When I was 21, I was involved in a bank robbery where a gun was held to my head and my coworker was stabbed 3 times with a hunting knife. Later that same year, 3 months later, the assailants would return to our main office where I had just moved, only this time the assailant who had held the gun to my head would pull the trigger and murder my coworker. My sister was a teller, 19 years old at the time. She had just asked to go on break, and the girl that was murdered was the one who had taken her place on the teller line. I had run from the bank and hiding behind row houses behind the plaza where the bank was, and came to face to face with an armed assailant who pointed his Luger at me. However, the gun misfired and my life was yet again spared. Also, during the first 10 years of my life, my dad physically abused my sister and myself until he received counseling and then apologized for hitting us and told us he would never hit us again. My mother was a severe alcoholic, still is to this day at 83 years old. And my dad struggled to maintain a job, so therefore we struggled with keeping food in the house at times, and with financial issues and struggles. So now for the happy and hope part. Today's lesson is going to be about creating a safe space for yourself. I learned this lesson from my therapist when I was attending EMDR therapy, and EMDR is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. And I would have panic attacks start to arise when we would revisit traumas. So one of the things that she had me do was create a safe space in my imagination that I could go to. But I have also created this safe space in my home. I have what I call my sacred writing space. And it's an office where I record the Healing Place podcast, as well as do my writing and finishing up the manuscript on a book, and my blog and my newsletter. But I've surrounded it with just everything that makes my heart smile. And so in my imaginary space, I created this wonderful place that I could go that was on the ocean and filled with huge windows that I could look out at a blue sky with one heart cloud that happened to be floating near the sun, and pillows and knickknacks and comforting music. And so spare no detail on the space that you are creating for yourself, whether it's a space in reality or a space in your imagination. Make it everything you. So that is today's lesson for learning coping skills. So, what's in your space? Feel free to share below in the comments section or in any of the social media spaces for the Healing Place podcast. And let us know what's in your space. All right. As I say on the podcast, until next time, remember, be gentle with yourself. Thanks. Bye-bye.